When Nikon launched its all-new full-frame mirrorless lineup with not just one but two cameras, it clearly had Sony in its sights. We've already talked about the Z7, which is nigh on identical to Sony's A7 III in terms of the price, resolution, and video capability. Now we're looking at the Z6, and guess what? It lines up nearly point for point to Sony's A7 III in terms of the $2,000 price, 24.5 megapixel sensor, and full-frame video 4K capability. So Nikon has stated its intentions pretty clearly. It intends to disrupt Sony's mirrorless dominance. So does it succeed? In a number of crucial areas, yeah, it kind of does. Nikon Z6 has the same body as the Z7, and handling and ergonomics are identical. With a weatherproof body and that big grip, it'll suit pro and semi-pro shooters alike, even if you're using a large lens. On top of that, all the controls are just where you need them, from the power switch to the focus joystick. Most shooters, especially Nikon users, will be very comfortable with it. The touchscreen is responsive and very useful, letting you control most aspects of the camera. Unfortunately, it doesn't flip around like the touchscreen on the EOS R, which is really too bad because otherwise it would have made a great vlogging camera. The menu system is a bit complex, and I prefer what Canon and Sony do. Still, if you program everything the way you want with the iMenu and function buttons, you rarely need to dive in there. In sum, this is a great handling camera that feels like a DSLR, and I really enjoyed shooting with it. At the same time, it's considerably lighter and easier to pack around. As for performance, again, there's not a lot to talk about here that we haven't already mentioned with the Z7. Burst shooting speeds are a bit faster than the Z7, but still only 5.5 frames per second with continuous autofocus. Because the resolution is nearly half, however, you can capture many more frames before the buffer fills up. Autofocus performance is great as long as your subject doesn't move around much. For action shooting, the tracking system can lose the subject and focus on the background instead, ruining the shot. Other aspects are top-notch. The in-body stabilization rivals or even beats the A7 III. Battery life is excellent. The EVF is one of the best you can get, though it occasionally blanks out when you shoot in bursts. There's only one card slot and it's XQD, which is a point against the Z6. Another area where Nikon Z6 is similar to the Sony A7 III is around video. Both cameras can do a full-frame, full-sensor readout with no cropping and no pixel binning. That means you can best take advantage of that full-frame sensor in terms of shallow depth of field and very good low-light capability. The Z6 can also output 10-bit video to an external recorder, giving you more to work with in post-production. And as much as the autofocus can be wonky with photos, subject tracking works great with video. And again, the Z6 has in-body stabilization, making handheld shooting easier. The Z6 has a similar sensor to the Z7, but with lower resolution and an anti-aliasing filter. That's a good thing. I found the colors to be accurate and images crisp and sharp with few artifacts. The Z6 has good, high ISO, low light performance, but not quite on par with Sony's A7 III. You can shoot in RAW with up to 14 bits per color, which gives you plenty to work with in Lightroom. Overall, image quality is nearly on par with Sony's A7 III, which is quite a high compliment for a brand new camera. I just wish that Nikon had better and more lenses for it, but that will come in time. If Nikon set out to beat Sony at its own mirrorless game, it has largely succeeded with the Z6, which is identically priced and spec'd to the Sony A7 III. Sony's camera has better performance, especially in the area of autofocus. It also edges the Z6 in image quality, particularly in low-light situations. And at the moment, Sony has many more native lenses, though you can use Nikon DSLR lenses with an adapter. However, the Nikon Z6 is a better handling camera, and it actually edges the Sony A7 III in terms of video. It has similar autofocus performance and video quality, but you have the ability to export 10-bit video via the HDMI port, which you can't do in the Sony A7 III. All of this is really good news as it gives potential buyers another option and will push Sony to do better.